Good, whatever time of day it is for you, ladies and gentlemen. Ignore what I have up here. I need to clean up the rest of my room. It's the beginning of the year. I haven't quite got everything organized yet. I want to show you some stuff on the calculator operations worksheet that we'll be getting in my classroom, my Algebra 1 classrooms. There's some cool stuff you can do in these calculators, even some cool stuff that I just recently figured out. Most of what we see here is pretty common, though. 2 to the 4th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. To do that in a calculator is actually pretty simple if you recognize that this little caret thingy here is the to the power of button. So if I want 2 to the 4th, I hit 2 to the power of 4 and hit equals, and I get my answer is 16. Want a square root? That's not difficult. There's a square button right here on the calculator. The square root button is part of the same button. You have to hit the second key in order to turn the square button into a square root button. So if you want to know the square root of 144, you hit the square root button first and enter, and there's your answer. It's 12. Moving down to the next section. Write each fraction as a decimal. This is not magic. Turning a fraction into a decimal is as simple as doing what the fraction says. A fraction is nothing more than a divide problem. 1 over 2 is 1 divided by 2. That's 0.5. That's pretty simple. But what's 5 divided by 8? Most of us don't have that in our heads. So I'm going to take the calculator and very simply say, hey, what's 5 over 8? And it'll tell me 0.625. That's my answer for that one. Not that hard. Really very simple. Basic arithmetic. Write each decimal as a fraction. Ooh. See, there's a mathematical way to do that, but there's a trick in the calculator that lets us turn a decimal back into a fraction. What is 0.8 in fractions? It's a little hidden. Hey, calculator, I'm going to take the number 0.8 and I'm going to want to do something to it. What am I going to do? I'm going to do something that's hidden in a set of functions called the math functions. It's a button up here on the upper left. While 0.8 is on my screen, I'm going to hit the math button, and one of the options under the math menu is convert to fraction. 0.8 converted to a fraction is 4/5. There's our answer for that one. Simple enough. All you do is enter the decimal, hit the math button, and then convert to fraction. Now here's the cool part. I can do fractions by converting them to decimals and then doing the math the way the calculator is accustomed to doing it. Or, if you have an updated TI-84 calculator, it can handle fractions natively. It's a little hidden. It's a little hard to get to. I need to do 1/10 plus 3 over 11. On my calculator, I need to enter 1/10, which, like I said, a fraction is just a decimal problem. 1 divided by 10. But I needed something better than that. If I do 1/10 plus 3 divided by 11th, I get 0.3727, and I could convert that to a fraction using what we did just before, but I can do it natively. This is cool. Watch. Hit the alpha key, which is under the second. And the reason we're hitting that is because what we really want is the F1, which is above the y equals key. So alpha and y equals is really the function 1, or F1 key. And we get a new menu of things to do, including some fraction things. One of them is make me a fraction, numerator over denominator. Select that option and you see a couple of boxes. Now we're ready to enter a fraction, 1 over 10. Look at that. Did you know this calculator did that? Now what I'm going to do with that, according to the problem, was then add it to, I believe it was 3/11. So I'm going to go again, alpha, F1, give me a fraction, 3 over 11. Hit 1 over to the right to say I'm done with that, and my answer is 41 over 110, natively in the calculator. Now, turning over to the back side of this document, I hope you notice that what's on here is relatively straightforward math. In fact, for most of them, if you just punch it directly into the calculator the way you see, it will go ahead and handle, I'm going to take this away for a second, the order of operations, PEMDAS, the parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing, and adding and subtracting. The order of mathematical operations that someone decided years and years ago we should do all of our math in. Coming back. So if you put in 8 minus 7 plus 9, your calculator will give you the correct answer to that. If you put in 5 parentheses 10 minus 1, the calculator knows do what's in parentheses first, because that's what PEMDAS requires. 10 minus 1 is 9, 5 times 9 is 45. Where it can get a little confusing is when we have fractions and other mathematical operations. The reason it's a little confusing, perhaps for some, is because mathematically we've left off something that maybe was a little important. If 43 minus 1 is the numerator, well, the numerator needs to be dealt with completely before we can deal with anything else. We probably should have put parentheses around that problem to begin with. Same with the denominator. 4 plus 2, well, that's easy enough to do. It's 6. But that combining the 4 and 2 to make 6 needs to happen before we can do the dividing that this ratio problem is. And all of that needs to happen before we can add the 10 to it. 43 minus 1, by the way, is 42. 4 plus 2 is 6. We're going to add 10 to that. And 42 divided by 6 is 7 plus 10. 7 plus 10 makes 17. Please make sure when you do this problem and you punch it into the calculator that what you wind up with is 17. If you punch it in wrong, if, for example, you don't group these things around the on that ratio, you're going to wind up with something other than 17. Last set of problems, we are literally only and simply substituting this value of x into this equation and this value of y into this equation. This is going to turn this equation into y, let's see, y is negative 2 divided by 2 plus x, only I know what x is at this moment, x is 1, and that's my mathematical problem to solve. Each of these is going to wind up with a number solution. In this case, negative 2 divided by 2 makes negative 1, and negative 1 plus 1 will make 0. Feel free to do it in your calculator, but make sure you're plugging in, substituting in these variable values for this moment in time when you do it. Good luck.